We Sell Restaurant operates the largest restaurant brokerage company in the nation based on the number of listings, transaction count, and volume. We are franchising nationwide and have offices in Florida, Colorado, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia.
We're back on the air with our franchising experts this week as the Restaurant Brokers gets to the truth about franchising your potential restaurant, and even those of you in the audience who are potential franchisees and have looked at different concepts. So I want to kick this off. We've talked about that FDD, or the Franchise Disclosure Document, that is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, and a prospective franchisee, someone looking to buy a business, may be honing in on one particular place in that FDD. And Bill, that would be the item 19. Will you explain for our listeners what is item 19 and why is that a particular interest to someone interested in buying a franchise?
Well, item 19 deals with disclosures of volume, cost, their financial representations that the franchisor can make. I might want to add that the Federal Trade Commission does not require a franchisor to make financial representations, but they can, only in the format that item 19 permits. And the disclosures of financial information have to be factual, based on actual operations, and should not be projections. Most new franchisors, unless they have very good records about company-owned stores, find it difficult to make any type of representation initially, and generally will rely on their franchisees as they come on board to provide those financial representations.
Okay, and go ahead.
And Kay, we as a restaurant, the restaurant broker and also as franchisor, get this question all the time: how much money am I going to make? And so many people looking to buy into a franchise are just worried about how much money am I going to make. But there's a whole lot more. These documents are very large. What other things a potential franchisee should be kind of paying attention to in this disclosure document?
I think the one item I would direct people to, I would urge everybody to read the entire document and to take it to a qualified franchise attorney for review. But item 7 is particularly useful for someone looking to buy a franchise. In item 7, the franchisor is required to provide estimates of the expenses for each category of expenditure that the franchisee has to have in order to get into business. So if you look at item 7, and not just the numbers, but read the notes that go with item 7, you can construct your own business plan based on the part of the country that you're located in. Obviously, the cost of getting started in a major city is less than in a rural area, but item 7 gives you a good guide for that. I would also pay attention to items 5 and 6, which provide all of the fees that you're required to pay the franchisor. And in franchising, things like your royalty fee, your advertising fee come right off the top of the business. So you want to be aware of those as you're doing your own sales projections so that you can make a better guesstimate of what your bottom line is going to be.
We like to always tell people to remember that franchisor is going to get paid whether you've made a bit of net profit or not, because almost all franchise fees or royalties are based on gross sales. So I think that's incredibly good advice. So item 5, 6, and 7, for somebody buying a franchise, it really says, what's this going to cost me in the short term and the long term to run this business, correct?
Yes.
Bill, any thoughts on those two elements as well?
Well, I would add item 11 to that list, because that deals with what the responsibilities of the franchisor is with respect to its duties to the franchisee. You need to know what to expect from the franchisor and make a decision. Can I make it if that's all the franchisor provides me?
That's good information as well. And do you guys agree also, we talk a lot about numbers here, and of course it's a huge financial commitment to anybody to buy a franchise, but I think some people tend to forget, buyers tend to forget also to have the passion, not just liking it because of the financial results, but to have the passion into the product, into the brand that you're about to buy in, that be a brand ambassador is also key to success.
Absolutely.
Bill, would you agree with that as well, that you see most buyers, they have to be passionate about the product they're about to get in?
They do. You want them to be, because they're going to make your best franchisees.
Well, I think this ties into what Kay said earlier, or maybe Bill, I apologize, maybe it was you when we talked about those first few franchisees are critical because they actually do end up being your sales force, and particularly in the early days. If you don't have a franchise on every corner, the first thing somebody's going to do, because also contained within that FTD, are the names and addresses of all of your franchisees. They're going to pick up the phone and start calling them and say, hey, what do you think about XYZ franchise? Are these guys do what they say they're going to do, and are you getting the results that you want?
Yeah, and the document also requires you to put former franchisees in there. That gets even a little more touchy.
That's true because, there are all kinds of, franchising. We could spend 5 shows on franchising because there are so many ins and outs to this business and people who have tried to franchise and failed. We're actually going to talk about in our next segment is restaurant reality, and that's where Eric and I really look at the reality of running a restaurant business. And we're going to talk about an example of some restaurant franchisors that we've had really great personal knowledge of who get to a certain size and then they fail. You have to be prepared. What we've learned today is you have to be prepared to make sure you have a process in place, a manual in place, that you're ready to support franchisees, whether they're geographically close or far, and that you also have an operations platform in place that can teach someone else how to do what you're doing if you want to get to that great standard. And always, everyone goes back to McDonald's because it absolutely is true. Whether you're in Japan or whether you're across the street, that McDonald's franchise sandwich always tastes the same. That's going to wrap up the time we have to discuss franchising with our experts today. Remember, we want to take you into our next segment, which is Restaurant Reality. We'll go in-depth about the tough topics no one wants to talk about, give our listener first-hand accounts on buying or selling a restaurant and everything in between. This is We Sell Restaurants. We are the restaurant brokers, Eric and Robin Gagnon. Stay tuned for our next segment right after the break.